The day humanity's smile vanished, the galaxy realized it had underestimated the wrong species. Calm, composed, and unassuming. Humans were never just another civilization. That day, the apex predator of the stars finally revealed itself. The diplomatic masquerade, Captain Elena Russo, stood before the transparent viewing wall of the Celestial Assembly Station, watching the swirling nebula beyond paint the darkness in shades of purple and gold. Behind her, the vast chamber hummed with the quiet conversations of 1,000 alien delegates, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that no human throat could replicate. She adjusted the collar of her formal uniform, feeling the weight of 8 years of preparation pressing down on her shoulders. 8 years. That was how long humanity had been petitioning to join the Galactic Confederation. 8 years of cultural exchanges, of carefully worded proposals, of proving that Earth people could be trusted among the stars. Today was the final evaluation, and Elena could feel the tension radiating from every member of her team. Dr. James Chen approached from her left. His datapad clutched against his chest. His usually calm expression was troubled. Elena had known James for 6 years, ever since he had been assigned as the mission xenobiologist and cultural liaison. She had never seen him look quite this worried. "They're afraid of us," James said quietly, his eyes scanning the assembled delegates. "I've been monitoring the preliminary reports. Every single species on the Confederation Council evolved from prey animals or peaceful herbivores. The Velix descended from herd creatures, the Quilnari from tree-dwelling fruit eaters, the Methrin from aquatic filter feeders. Not a single predator species among them." Elena absorbed this information, her mind racing through the implications. "And we're asking carnivores to trust us at their dinner table." "Omnivores," James corrected automatically, then caught himself. "But yes, essentially. We're the first predator species to ever petition for membership. They don't know what to do with us." Lieutenant Sarah Okafor joined them, her movements precise and controlled despite the civilian clothes she wore. Sarah had been military for 15 years before joining the diplomatic corps, and it showed in every deliberate step. "The security chief just pulled me aside," she reported, her voice low. "Wanted to know if our aggressive tendencies could be suppressed with medication. I told him we were perfectly in control, but he didn't look convinced." Elena felt a familiar frustration building in her chest. But she forced it down, replacing it with the diplomatic smile that had become second nature. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. We just have to show them we're more than our biology." Marcus Webb, the team's engineer, wandered over with his characteristic distracted air. His hands were stained with lubricant from working on their shuttle's propulsion system, and his hair stuck up at odd angles. "You know what's funny?" he said, not waiting for an answer. "Their station designs have zero defensive considerations. No reinforced bulkheads, no emergency weapons systems, no backup power routing for combat scenarios. It's like they've never considered the possibility of being attacked." "They haven't," James said. "The Confederation has existed for 400 years without a single military conflict. They maintain peace through diplomacy and economic interdependence. War is literally inconceivable to them." A melodic chime echoed through the chamber, and the ambient conversations ceased. The delegates began moving toward their assigned seating areas, a flowing migration of varied forms and colors. Elena took a deep breath and led her team toward the human delegation platform, a small raised circle near the chamber center. High Chancellor Viximer materialized above them, his holographic form representing the Quilnari people. His elongated body shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, and his 4 eyes regarded the humans with undisguised wariness. "Honored delegates," his translated voice resonated through the chamber. "We gather to render final judgment on humanity's petition to join the Galactic Confederation." Elena felt every alien eye turn toward her team. The weight of their collective gaze was almost physical. "In our 8 years of observation," Veximer continued, "we have witnessed much that troubles us. Humans possess remarkable intelligence and creativity. This cannot be denied. Yet you carry within you the legacy of predation. Your sports involve ritualized combat. Your entertainment glorifies conflict. Your history is written in the blood of countless wars. High Chancellor, Elena began, her voice steady and respectful. With permission to respond, Veximer's bioluminescence flickered in what might have been surprise. Few species interrupted the Chancellor. Speak, Captain Rousseau. Everything you say about our history is true, Elena said, choosing her words with care. Humanity has fought wars. We have competed and struggled. But we have also learned. For 70 years, Earth has known peace. We have channeled our competitive instincts into science, art, and exploration. We seek to join the Confederation not to threaten it, but to contribute to it. Pretty words, a delegate from the lower tiers called out. But can you change what you are? Can you suppress the hunter that lives in your genes? Before Elena could respond, the chamber's lighting shifted from warm gold to urgent crimson. A klaxon sound unlike anything she had heard before filled the air, rising and falling in waves that seemed designed to trigger panic. Across the chamber, alien delegates began rising from their seats, their movements jerky with fear. James's datapad lit up with cascading alerts. Elena were receiving distress calls. Multiple colonies on the Confederation's outer rim are under attack. Ships of unknown origin, moving fast. The main holographic display materialized in the chamber's center, showing a tactical map of Confederation space. Red icons were appearing along the border, dozens of them, moving inward like a closing fist. Sarah had already pulled up her own tactical display, her military training overriding diplomatic protocol. Those response patterns. Whatever's attacking isn't using standard propulsion. They're moving in swarm formations. Marcus was studying the engineering readouts, his usually distracted expression sharpening into focus. The station's defense systems are offline. Not damaged, just they don't exist. There's nothing between us and whatever's out there. Vexemer's holographic form flickered with erratic bioluminescence patterns. This cannot be. 400 years of peace. 400 years without conflict. This must be some mistake. Elena watched as the red icons drew closer to the Celestial Assembly station. Around her, alien delegates were beginning to panic, their movements becoming more frantic. She recognized the behavior from her xenobiology training. Classic prey animal response to threat. Confusion, flight impulse, herd mentality. Then the first proximity alarm sounded, sharp and final. Something was approaching the station directly. Multiple somethings. Sarah pulled up the external visual feeds, and Elena felt her blood run cold. Ships, if they could be called that, were closing in on the station. They looked organic, biomechanical, covered in what appeared to be flowing black tissue interspersed with metallic structures. There were dozens of them, each one roughly the size of a transport vessel. Ravagers, an ancient voice whispered through the chamber. Elder Thomrix, the oldest member of the Confederation Council, had gone completely still. The Ravagers have returned. What are Ravagers? Elena demanded, but the elder seemed unable to respond. Locked in some private terror. James was frantically searching the historical databases. Found it. Biomechanical parasites. They appeared 400 years ago, attacked 3 Confederation colonies before disappearing. Thought to be extinct. The Confederation's founding was partially a response to the Ravager threat, pooling resources for mutual protection. 400 years, Marcus muttered. That's why the station has no defenses. They've been at peace so long they forgot what they were originally afraid of. The chamber had descended into chaos. Delegates were fleeing toward exits, pushing and trampling each other in their panic. Security forces stood frozen, their training adequate for crowd control but worthless for actual combat. High Chancellor Veximer's hologram was flickering erratically as he tried to give orders that no one was following. Elena felt something shift inside her chest. She looked at her team and saw the same transformation beginning in each of them. Sarah's posture had changed, becoming predatory and alert. Marcus's distracted air had vanished, replaced by sharp calculation. James had stopped scrolling through his datapad and was instead studying the tactical situation with cold analysis. For 8 years, they had worn their diplomatic masks. For 8 years, they had smiled and been gentle and proven they could be trusted. But now, with death approaching and an entire station full of terrified prey animals, unable to defend themselves, Elena made a decision. She kept her communication badge. All human personnel on Celestial Assembly Station, this is Captain Rousseau. Authorization code, Crimson Dawn. I repeat, Crimson Dawn protocol is active. Around the station, 19 other humans received the message. And slowly, methodically, humanity's diplomatic smile began to fade. The galaxy was about to meet Earth's true apex predator. The mask slips, the transformation was subtle at first, visible only to those who knew what to look for. Sarah Okafor's shoulders rolled back, her stance widening into something that could explode into motion at any moment. Marcus Webb stopped fidgeting with his tools and instead held them with purpose, his engineer's hands now gripping potential weapons. James Chin's academic slouch straightened into rigid attention, his eyes tracking every movement in the chaotic chamber with predatory focus. Elena felt it too. The shedding of 8 years of careful performance. The diplomatic smile, the soft voice, the non-threatening posture, all of it fell away like a costume no longer needed. Underneath was something the Confederation had never seen, something humanity had carefully hidden behind. Pleasantries and cultural exchanges. The external sensors showed the Ravager ships attaching themselves to the stations, hull like parasites on a host. Crystalline panels that made up the station's beautiful exterior began to crack and splinter as drilling appendages punched through. The biomechanical invaders were coming inside. High Chancellor Veximer's holographic form was pulsing with erratic colors, his 4 eyes wide with an emotion that transcended species barriers. Pure, primal terror. Security forces, respond to breach points, he tried to command, but his translated voice was shaking. Evacuate civilians to the core shelters. Activate defense protocols. There are no defense protocols, Sarah said flatly, her voice cutting through the panic with military precision. Your people haven't fought a war in 4 centuries. You don't remember how. A security officer from the Velix species approached them, his herbivorous features twisted in confusion and fear. His 6 legs were trembling, and the natural camouflage patterns on his hide were flickering randomly. Humans, you must evacuate with the others. We will attempt to seal the breach points and wait for military assistance from the outer colonies. Military assistance from colonies currently under attack? Marcus asked, his tone making it clear he already knew the answer. How long until reinforcements arrive? 72 hours, the Velix officer admitted. Perhaps 96. Elena stepped closer to the security officer, and he instinctively backed away. She noted the retreat, the way his body language screamed prey animal confronted by predator. This station will be overrun in less than 2 hours. You don't have 72 hours. The first screams echoed from the outer corridors. On the holographic displays, grainy security footage showed Ravagers pouring through breached sections. They moved on multiple legs, their bodies a grotesque fusion of black organic tissue and silver mechanical components. Each one stood roughly 7 feet tall, with appendages that ended in cutting tools, injection ports, and sensory equipment. They moved with purpose, herding terrified aliens into groups, selecting some for immediate consumption and others for reasons unknown. James was watching the footage with clinical detachment. They're more organized than the historical records suggested. There's intelligence coordinating them. See how they're dividing the station into sectors. That's strategic thinking. Can we communicate with them? Veximer asked desperately. Negotiate? The Confederation has resources, technology. Perhaps we can offer them something in exchange for peace? Sarah didn't look away from the tactical display. Chancellor, those things are eating your people. You don't negotiate with something that sees you as food. The bluntness of her statement caused visible recoil among the nearby delegates who hadn't yet fled. The culinary concept of discourse emphasized harmony and mutual understanding. Sarah's words cut through those comfortable assumptions like a blade. Elena made her decision. She activated her communication badge again, and her voice carried across all human channels. All personnel, this is Rousseau. We have 19 humans scattered across this station. Maintenance workers, cultural liaisons, trade representatives. I'm activating Crimson Dawn with full authority. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect civilians, eliminate threats, survive. Acknowledge. Responses came back one by one. David Park, a maintenance engineer stationed in the lower decks. Linda Martinez, working in the trade administration office. Tom Whoever, a junior diplomat in the cultural exchange program. 19 voices, all acknowledging the order with the same calm efficiency. Captain Rousseau, Veximir's hologram, flickered closer. What are you doing? What is Crimson Dawn? Elena met the Chancellor's 4 eyes without flinching. It's the protocol we hoped we'd never have to use. For 8 years, we've been on our best behavior. We've been gentle, diplomatic, non-threatening. We've hidden what we really are because we knew it frightened you. But right now, this station needs what we've been hiding. And what exactly have you been hiding? The question came from Elder Thomrix, who had recovered enough to speak. The thing that kept humanity alive on a planet full of predators larger and stronger than us, Sarah answered. Pack hunting. Tool use. Tactical thinking. The willingness to be violent when violence is the only option. Another wave of screams echoed from the corridors. Closer now. A group of Methrin delegates burst into the chamber, their aquatic bodies sloshing in their environmental suits, fleeing from something unseen. Behind them, 3 Ravagers skittered into view, their cutting appendages gleaming with fresh blood. The security forces in the chamber raised their weapons, but their hands were shaking. Elena could see it in their eyes, the freeze response, the overwhelming urge to flee. The biological imperative screaming at them that they were prey animals facing a predator. They couldn't fight effectively because evolution had never given them the tools for it. The Ravagers advanced into the chamber, their sensory equipment swiveling to catalog the hundreds of potential victims gathered in one convenient location. They made a sound like grinding metal mixed with organic clicking, and Elena understood they were communicating with others of their kind. Sarah, Marcus James, Elena said quietly. Standard dispersion formation. Protect the civilians. The 4 humans moved, and the change in their body language was so dramatic that several nearby aliens scrambled backward. Gone was any pretense of gentleness. Sarah moved with lethal grace, pulling a maintenance tool from her belt and holding it like the weapon it had just become. Marcus hefted a piece of broken equipment, testing its weight and balance. James grabbed a ceremonial pole from a nearby display, snapping off the decorative elements to expose the metal core. Elena had nothing but her hands. But that was enough. The Ravagers paused, their sensory equipment focusing on the 4 humans. For a moment, nothing moved. Then one of the creatures surged forward with surprising speed. Its cutting appendages raised to strike. Elena stepped into the attack rather than away from it, a move that went against every prey animal instinct. She caught the creature's appendage, used its own momentum to throw it off balance, and drove her elbow into what looked like a sensory cluster. The Ravager shrieked, and Sarah was already there, driving her improvised weapon into the joint where leg met body. The creature collapsed, twitching. The other 2 Ravagers hesitated, their sensors processing this unexpected resistance. They've never fought back before, James observed, circling to flank the remaining Ravagers. Every species they've encountered has run or frozen. They don't know what to do with prey that hunts them. Marcus moved with surprising speed for someone who usually appeared clumsy and distracted. He swung his makeshift club into the second Ravager's legs, dropping it to the ground where Sarah finished it with brutal efficiency. The third creature tried to retreat, but Elena was faster. She grabbed a piece of debris and hurled it with accuracy that spoke of thousands of years of human evolution perfecting the throwing motion. It struck the Ravager's sensory cluster, and the creature stumbled directly into James's waiting weapon, 3 Ravagers dead in less than 30 seconds. The chamber had gone completely silent. Elena activated her communicator. All human personnel engage hostile contacts. Protect civilians and move them to core shelters. Use whatever weapons you can improvise. These things have vulnerable joints and sensory clusters. Aim for those. Across the station, humanity dropped its mask. David Park, the maintenance engineer, used his intimate knowledge of the station's systems to trap Ravagers in sealed sections and vent them into space. Linda Martinez organized terrified aliens into groups and led them to safety, cutting down any Ravager that got in her way with improvised weapons and bare hands when necessary. Tom Whoever, the junior diplomat, discovered he had a talent for tactical coordination, directing human teams through the communication network like pieces on a chessboard dot in the main chamber. Elena watched the holographic displays as red icons representing Ravagers began to wink out one by one. The human teams were hunting systematically, turning the station's corridors into killing grounds. They used terrain, they used tactics, they used the Ravagers' own aggressive behavior against them. This is impossible, Veximer whispered. 19 individuals against hundreds of those creatures. 19 apex predators, Sarah corrected, against hundreds of parasites that have only ever hunted prey animals. It's not a fair fight, Chancellor. Just not in the way you think. James was studying the larger tactical display. Elena, we have a problem. There's a massive energy signature approaching the station. Something much bigger than the ships we've seen so far. The display zoomed out, showing a structure that dwarfed everything else on the screen. It was easily 10 times the size of the largest Ravager ship, a sprawling biomechanical nightmare that pulsed with sickly green light. As they watched, it began to accelerate towards Celestial Assembly Station. Marcus did rapid calculations in his head. That thing hits us, and the station breaks apart. Hull integrity won't hold. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. They had been winning against the smaller Ravagers, but this was something different. This was the real threat, the intelligence coordinating everything else. The Nexus, Elder Thomrick said, his voice hollow with old memory. 400 years ago, we drove the Ravagers away by destroying their central intelligence. But we never confirmed the kill. It's been out there all this time, growing, planning. Sarah checked the tactical displays. We have maybe 20 minutes before that thing reaches us. Ideas? Elena looked at her team, then at the terrified aliens surrounding them. She thought about 8 years of diplomacy, of carefully building trust, of proving humanity could be gentle. And she thought about what would happen to all these people if the Nexus arrived and found them defenseless. We have one advantage, Elena said slowly. That thing is coming to us. It thinks this station is helpless prey. It doesn't know that this time the prey has teeth. She turned to High Chancellor Veximer. Chancellor, I need complete access to your station systems. Engineering, power distribution, reactor controls, everything. Why? Veximer asked, though Elena could see in his eyes that he already knew. Because, Elena said, her voice carrying the weight of a decision that couldn't be unmade. We're going to show that thing what happens when you hunt humanity. We don't run. We don't freeze. We fight back. The diplomatic mask was gone completely now. In its place was something the Galactic Confederation had never seen. Something that had kept humanity alive through ice ages and predators and countless dangers on a hostile world. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth's apex predator wasn't just dangerous, it was creative about it. Guardians of the Weak, the Nexus approached like a diseased moon, its massive form blotting out the stars. Through the station's external sensors, Elena could see its surface writhing with biomechanical activity. Smaller Ravager units crawled across its hull like antibodies, and deep within its core, something pulsed with rhythmic green light that hurt to look at directly. Marcus was already at the engineering console, his fingers dancing across holographic controls with the confidence of someone who had spent years understanding systems that weren't designed for human hands. The station's reactor is a quantum fusion array. Clean, efficient, and completely stable under normal circumstances. But if we overload the magnetic containment fields while simultaneously venting the coolant system, we could create a chain reaction. How big? Elena asked. Marcus did calculations in his head, his eyes distant. Big enough to crack that thing in half, maybe bigger. But the station won't survive the blast. We'd need to evacuate everyone to the outer docking rings and separate them before detonation. Even then, the shockwave could tear those sections apart. James was studying the Nexus's approach vector. It's moving deliberately, not rushing. It thinks it has time. That's our advantage. It doesn't know we're planning to turn this station into a weapon. Sarah had gathered all available data on the remaining Ravagers inside the station. We still have approximately 80 hostile contacts between us and the reactor core. The human teams have cleared most of the civilian sectors. But the deeper we go, the more concentrated the Ravager presence becomes. They're protecting something? Not protecting, James corrected, pointing to a biological scan. Feeding? The reactor puts out massive amounts of energy. They're drawn to it like moths to a flame. That concentration isn't strategic, it's instinctive. Elena studied the tactical map, her mind running through scenarios. Each one ended with the same conclusion. Someone had to reach the reactor core, manually override the safety systems, and initiate the overload sequence. Someone had to stay behind to ensure the detonation happened at exactly the right moment. And whoever stayed wouldn't be getting off the station. She could see her team reaching the same conclusion. Sarah's jaw tightened. Marcus stopped his calculations and looked at her directly. James closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with acceptance. No, Maximer said, his holographic form solidifying next to them. The Chancellor's bioluminescence had stabilized, his fear giving way to something else. You've done enough. You've saved thousands of lives already. We cannot ask you to sacrifice yourselves for us. You're not asking, Elena said, simply. We're choosing? That's what makes us different from the Ravagers. They consume because they can't do anything else. We protect because we choose to. But why? The question came from a young Quilnari delegate who had been huddled nearby. We rejected you. We feared you. We called you monsters. Why would you die for us? Sarah answered, her voice carrying unexpected gentleness. Because someone has to. Because you can't. Not because you're weak, but because your evolution never gave you the tools for this kind of fight. We have those tools. That makes it our responsibility. Elena activated the station-wide communication system. Her voice reached every corridor, every shelter, every surviving soul on Celestial Assembly Station. This is Captain Elena Rousseau to all personnel. We are initiating full evacuation to the outer docking rings. All civilian transport will separate from the main station in 15 minutes. Human teams will cover the retreat and ensure no one gets left behind. She switched to the human-only channel. All teams, this is Rousseau. Fall back to evacuation points. Get every civilian off this station. Once you're clear, separate to minimum safe distance and do not look back. That's an order. David Park's voice came through, breathless from fighting. Captain, the reactor core is 3 levels down and surrounded by Ravagers. You'll never make it alone. I won't be alone, Elena said, looking at her team. They nodded in unison. Rousseau out. The journey to the reactor core took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Elena, Sarah, Marcus, and James moved through corridors that had become alien graveyards. The beautiful crystalline architecture was cracked and stained, emergency lighting casting everything in red and shadow. They encountered Ravagers in groups of 3 and 4. And each time, the humans moved with coordinated precision that spoke of thousands of years of pack hunting evolution. Sarah took point, her makeshift weapons wielded with lethal expertise. Marcus covered their flanks, using his engineering knowledge to collapse corridors behind them and seal off pursuit. James mapped their route, finding paths the Ravagers hadn't anticipated, and Elena led them forward, making decisions in split seconds that meant the difference between survival and death. They fought their way through 12 separate encounters. Sarah took a cut across her arm that would need medical attention she wouldn't receive. Marcus had bruised ribs from being thrown against a wall. James was limping from a twisted ankle. Elena's hands were torn and bleeding from using crystalline debris as weapons. But they were still moving, still fighting, still pushing forward. The reactor core chamber was massive, a cathedral of technology that hummed with barely contained power. In the center, the quantum fusion array floated in a magnetic containment field, a miniature star throwing off waves of heat and light. And surrounding it, drawn by the energy, were the remaining Ravagers. At least 50 of them, their biomechanical bodies feeding on the reactor's radiation, like plants absorbing sunlight. Well, Marcus said, surveying the scene with dark humor, at least we found them all in one place. Sarah checked her makeshift weapons. We need to draw them away from the reactors so Marcus can reach the controls. Standard dispersion won't work with these numbers. We need something that triggers their hunting instinct completely. Bait, James said quietly. We need prey that runs. Elena understood immediately. Split up. Sarah, you and James take the eastern approach. Make noise, draw their attention, then lead them on a chase through the outer corridors. Marcus and I will go for the reactor controls during the distraction. That's a suicide run, Sarah stated flatly. Those corridors loop back on themselves. We'll be trapped. Then make it count, Elena said, meeting her eyes. Make them chase you far enough that Marcus has time to work. That's all we need. Sarah held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. It's been an honor serving with you, Captain. The honor was mine, Lieutenant. Sarah and James moved to the eastern entrance, making themselves visible to the Ravagers. Then Sarah did something that went against every military instinct. She turned and ran. James followed, and the effect was immediate. The Ravagers' sensory equipment locked onto fleeing prey, and their biological imperative overrode whatever strategic intelligence they possessed. 50 biomechanical nightmares surged after the two running humans, leaving the reactor chamber nearly empty. Elena and Marcus ran for the control console. Marcus's fingers flew across the interface, bypassing safety systems that were designed to prevent exactly what he was trying to do. Overriding magnetic containment, venting coolant systems, disabling emergency shutdown protocols. This is going to work, but I need 5 minutes for the reaction to build to critical mass. Elena could hear the sounds of fighting in the distance. Sarah and James were making their stand, buying time with their lives. She activated her communicator one last time. All civilian transports, this is Rousseau. Separate from the station immediately. Get to minimum safe distance and engage emergency thrusters. You have 4 minutes. Through the station's sensors, she watched the outer docking rings break away, carrying thousands of lives to safety. The Galactic Confederation's people were fleeing. But this time they were fleeing because humanity had given them the chance. The reactor's hum changed pitch, rising from a gentle pulse to an angry whine. Marcus stepped back from the controls. 3 minutes to detonation. The reaction is self-sustaining now. Nothing can stop it. Elena looked toward the eastern corridor, where the sounds of fighting had gone silent. Sarah? James? Report. Only static answered. Marcus's voice was thick. They bought us the time we needed. The reactor core was beginning to glow brighter, the containment field flickering as it struggled against impossible pressure. Elena thought about 8 years of diplomacy, of carefully hiding what humanity was, of trying so hard to be acceptable to a galaxy that feared them. And she thought about these last hours, when the mask had finally dropped and the Confederation had seen humanity's true face. Not monsters, not conquerors, protectors, guardians, the dangerous thing that stood between the weak and those who would prey upon them. Marcus, she said quietly, if we somehow survive this, what do you think happens next? He smiled, understanding the question for what it was, a last moment of human connection before the end. I think they'll finally understand. Being a predator doesn't mean we hunt the weak. It means we hunt the things that hunt the weak. There's a difference. The Nexus entered weapons range of the station. Elena could see it on the displays, preparing to attach its feeding appendages, anticipating an easy meal. It had no idea what was about to happen. The reactor reached critical mass. For a moment, nothing existed but light. The quantum fusion array's containment field collapsed, releasing energy equivalent to a small star going supernova. The blast tore through Celestial Assembly Station in microseconds, vaporizing everything at the core and hurling debris outward at relativistic speeds. The Nexus, pressed close to feed, was caught in the full force of the detonation. Its massive biomechanical hull cracked like an egg, its internal structures exposed to vacuum and radiation. The intelligence that had coordinated thousands of Ravagers across dozens of worlds died in an instant. Its final thought perhaps one of surprise that prey could strike back so decisively. The shockwave expanded outward, and the separated docking rings were caught at its edge. Metal screamed, hulls buckled, but the distance was just enough. The rings survived, tumbling through space but intact. Inside, thousands of aliens watched the explosion through reinforced viewports, bearing witness to humanity's sacrifice, except Elena and Marcus never saw the explosion. The reactor room had been at ground zero, and the wave of energy that consumed them moved faster than nerve signals. They simply stopped existing, transformed from matter to energy, in the span of time it takes light to travel an inch. But they had already won. 3 days later, High Chancellor Veximar stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council, this time held on a borrowed space station. His holographic form was stable, his bioluminescence patterns somber. Behind him, images played footage from Celestial Assembly Station's final hours, recordings of humans fighting and dying to protect aliens who had rejected them. For 400 years, Veximar began, the Confederation has maintained peace by excluding those we feared. We built our society on the principle that violence itself was evil, that any species capable of predation must be kept separate from civilized space. We were wrong. The assembled delegates listened in silence. Many had been aboard the station. All had lost friends or colleagues. And all had been saved by the species they had feared. Humanity showed us the difference between capacity and choice, Veximar continued. They are capable of great violence, yes, but they are also capable of great sacrifice. They chose to be our guardians when we could not guard ourselves. They died so that we might live, asking nothing in return. Elder Thomric's ancient voice joined the Chancellor's. 400 years ago, the Ravagers came and we ran. We hid. We built this confederation on the foundation of that fear, and we told ourselves it was peace. But peace maintained by hiding from danger is not true peace. It is merely delayed fear. Veximar's hologram shifted, showing the final transmission from Captain Elena Russo. Her face was calm, accepting, resolved. "We are not your conquerors," her recorded voice said. "We are not your enemies. We are the thing that stands between you and the darkness." That is what humanity offers the galaxy, not domination, but protection. Not conquest, but guardianship. The transmission ended. The chamber remained silent. Humanity's petition for Confederation membership is not only approved, Veximar declared, but we propose something more. We propose the creation of the Sentinel Corps, a defensive force led by humanity and open to any species willing to learn what they taught us. That strength can serve weakness. That danger can protect peace. That predators can choose to guard instead of hunt. The vote was unanimous. 4 months later, Linda Martinez stood on the observation deck of Sentinel Station, watching recruit ships arrive from across the Confederation. Human instructors would teach them tactics, strategy, the psychology of defense. They would learn to fight not because fighting was good, but because sometimes the only thing standing between civilization and chaos was the willingness to be dangerous in service of others. She thought about Captain Elena Rousseau, about Sarah Okafor and James Chun and Marcus Webb, about David Park and Tom, Whoever and all the others who had dropped their diplomatic masks and revealed humanity's true face. Not monsters wearing human skin, but guardians who chose to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Behind her, a young Quilnari recruit approached hesitantly. Instructor Martinez? I wanted to ask, when you were on the station, when you fought those creatures, were you afraid? Linda considered the question carefully. Terrified. Every moment. Fear doesn't make you weak, it makes you careful. The question isn't whether you're afraid. It's what you do while you're afraid. The Quilnari's feathers rustled thoughtfully. And what did humans do? Linda smiled, and it wasn't the diplomatic smile humanity had worn for 8 years. It was something real, something earned. We fought, because that's what guardians do. We stand between the darkness and those who can't stand for themselves, and we don't run. The recruit nodded slowly, beginning to understand. Across the galaxy, humanity had finally found its place among the stars. Not as the feared outsiders, not as the rejected predators, but as the guardians who proved that fangs and claws were only evil when used for evil purposes. In the hands of those who chose to protect, they were the tools that kept civilization safe. The day humanity's smile faded was the day the galaxy learned its most important lesson. The most dangerous predator is the one that hunts not for sport or hunger, but for love of the weak dot in humanity loved very fiercely indeed.